much for joining us, and I do apologize for that slight technical difficulty we had a few minutes ago. I know some of you are logging back in right now. Really excited to have a discussion today about client trends defining new business. We know that for agencies as well as brands, new business is in many ways the lifeblood of the organization. And to talk about that, thrilled to have a couple of people here who are intimately acquainted with that process. You're going to be hearing mostly from Brent Hodgins, who is the Director of Business Development and a partner at Mirren Business Development, talking about new trends that they've discovered through their research. And later on in this presentation, you will hear, we'll be joined by Lisa Detheridge, who's the Chief Marketing Officer at Integer, and she'll lead the Q&A. And for the time being, I just want to welcome Brent. I want to welcome you all here. And Brent, the show is yours.
All right, thanks, Rob. Let's dig in right away. It's about 10 minutes past the hour, and I know as it relates to new business, if you're working in or involved with new business at all, you tend to have an exceptionally tight schedule, so we'll dig in right away. What I wanted to do first was just give you kind of a 15, 20-second background on Mirren, which will just give you a bit of a context in terms of the perspective that I'll be coming from and where we glean some of our insights that I'll be sharing with you over the next hour. The short version on Mirren is that we do new business strategy for marketing communications agencies, firms, whether it is direct marketing, digital advertising, sales promotion, the full gamut. We don't do other types of work with agencies, and we don't work with other types of firms. We also do recruiting in the space, and we do training events, larger training events. And it's the training events where we get some of our insight for some of the trends that I'm going to be taking you through in just a second here. Each spring, we do a large conference here in New York with Adweek magazine, where it's 3 days, 400 agencies, 35 speakers, 30 sessions, and it's just hammering out business development strategy. And it's the insights that come from some of these firms that are growing despite the recession, some of these firms that have had pretty solid, consistent growth for the last few years, the last 5 years. And there's another event that we do where we probably even get more relevant insight, and this is through a partnership that we have with Harvard Business School and Harvard Business Review, where a couple of times each year we gather clients, and usually about 8 or 10 at a time, and we talk to them about the future of the business, where they see the industry going in terms of where they see agencies going, and the firms that service them, and we also poke and probe a lot about business development. And we ask them what it is they most want when a firm is trying to court them, and what we often hear is a lot of what they don't want when a firm is trying to court them and get in the door and secure some business with them. So it's from these two events, along with a lot of research that we do throughout the year. And all of us here at Mirren have been in business development ourselves, many of us for over a decade or so, having worked for different firms. Personally, I was most recently at Wieden & Kennedy, where I ran new business there. Before that, TBWA Chiat/Day, and then a few kind of packaged goods-oriented agencies before that. Now, more important than that, let's get into the trends. So the first trend driving things is that there is a new sheriff in town, and it's actually probably more fair to say there's 2 new sheriffs in town in terms of what's going on client side. The CFO is more directly involved in the procurement of new agencies, new firms, more than ever. It's actually fairly common in any recession that the power-based client side gets reduced to a smaller number of more senior people particularly those that have more of an orientation to be watching the numbers. And I'm sure many of you have started to bump into the fact that the CFO may even be showing up at an occasional presentation or two, particularly if it's a significant assignment for the company. We're hearing anecdotally a lot more often now that they're having to cater to this mindset, which is very different in the marketing department. CFOs, as you know, are not marketers, and some of them tend to look at marketing as, well, it's a line item that you cut, not that you expand during a recession. And they're exceptionally pragmatic, which I'll talk about in a little while. But they're very bottom line, very sales focused in terms of sales as in the numbers. There's a priority, as I mentioned, on cutting costs versus increasing any of the line items that they're reviewing. And they're just not educated marketers. They don't always understand the value of what you're bringing to the table. So this is one of the new trends, and it's one that is it's making it more difficult to get through and to communicate the value of what you're bringing to the table. A closely related brethren is procurement. I'm sure you're starting to bump into procurement a little bit more often. And procurement kind of views bringing on a new agency or a new firm as it's been a bit of a wild party for the last 20, 30 years. It's been based on relationships and not a lot of science, and we've been overpaying for quote-unquote vendors that we've used in the past. And procurement believes that they're the ones that need to fix all of this. They need to bring some order that is to the chaos of bringing on new agencies and new firms that they work with. They want total control of the relationship. We see this building. We were just recently on site with a PR firm outside of Chicago, and they, P&G is one of their clients. Fortunate, and it's a big company, but they were recently told by P&G that, or by P&G Procurement, that procurement would now own the relationship. The work that you do, the programs that you come up with, that's with your brand managers. But in terms of the contract negotiations, how the relationship is structured, that is through us now. So procurement really stepping in and wanting to get a bit of a control. There's more competitive reviews and more agencies in each. There's a belief that in order to get the best work and fair pricing, that you need to have a greater number of, again, quote-unquote, vendors participating in the review. So it's not uncommon to see 10, 12, 15, in some cases 20, 25 firms competing for an assignment. There's new pay-per-performance compensation that's been getting a lot of press in terms of you will have your out-of-pocket costs covered, but beyond that, your margin will be paid to you based on the impact that you create for our business. In other words, the sales impact that you have on our business. The problem with this is clients like to mess with the work sometimes. So you go forward with a strategy and the program recommendation. The client decides they want to tweak it a little bit, they want to change it, they realize they kind of want something just a little bit different, and so that's what goes to market, is their revised version of what you ultimately recommended. However, when the work doesn't work to the full extent that they were expecting, why should the agency be held accountable? Why shouldn't they be held accountable if they're going to make changes to what you're ultimately recommending? So this is definitely kind of an outstanding issue that is Procter & Gamble has been taking the lead on pushing this forward. Excuse me, Coca-Cola as well. And again, with these guys, they're not educated marketers. So we have to spend a lot of time in helping them understand exactly what it is that we do and the value that that will ultimately provide to their business, so that they will see their way to bring you on board and ultimately pay the fee that you're requesting. So 2 new power bases that are having quite an influence on bringing new agencies, new professional services firms in general on board, the CFO and procurement. Here's actually some of the headlines that Coca-Cola has been getting about their new paper performance model. There's a woman at Coca-Cola that has taken it on as a bit of a mission to not only switch all of their agencies over to this model, but she wants clients in general across the board to adopt the Coca-Cola model. So she has been speaking at conferences, doing webinars, publishing articles, getting a lot of press around her cause, which is get agencies over to this value-based system. A little scary. I would bet you've never, ever seen this one. Clients say one thing, but then they do another. We want big, bold, game-changing ideas, guys. We really want you to push the envelope on this one. We want something really creative. And my favorite is, oh, if it makes us nervous, that's a good thing. Yeah, right, it's a good thing if it makes you nervous. This has been a trend that's been building for about 4 or 5 years now, where at the outset of an assignment or the outset of a brief for a competitive pitch, they believe in that moment that they really do want something big, bold, game-changing. They want some fresh thinking. They really believe that in the moment, which is why it's particularly confusing to agencies. We head off in that direction. We come back with those big ideas, and I'm sure you've seen it, the reaction from the client across the table as you present the work, and they kind of start to look at it, and you can see the fear setting in, and it's a bit of, oh, wow, yeah, that really is big. That is pretty creative, isn't it? Well, yeah, no, we couldn't do that here. Yeah, our CFO, our CEO, they would never go for that. You know, we'll go for this kind of the safe option over here. And in fact, you know what? That one's even a little bit big, a little bit bold as well. So why are they doing this? Why is it that they talk one way, but then they act another? One of the key reasons is that they are scared. The average tenure of a marketing chief right now, a client-side marketing chief, is 18 to 23 months, and it's on the decline. Factor in a recession where companies are not meeting their numbers, and that's more pressure on that tenure and shortening that tenure. It is only natural that if you are coming into work every day and you're wondering, all right, is this it? Is this the moment, or I'm going to get the call from who knows who's going to call me to ultimately whack me, but is today the day that I'm going to get whacked? Am I going to get escorted out to the dumpster and disappear? Except I think it would be even better if it was out the back door, except if they're at a high-profile company, their departure, their firing, makes headlines. If it's a really big public company, it's often the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times. At minimum, they're trade publications. So it's a public beheading, so to speak, when these guys are fired. And what's happened is firing the marketing chief has become almost a bit of a fad. We're not making our numbers. Well, clearly that's the head of marketing fault, so we need to get rid of them. Meanwhile, the head of marketing is trying to build this case that says, look, we need to build a brand over the long term while driving sales in the short term. I understand that we have to make our numbers for the quarter, but I also have to make sure that our brand is strong enough that we're still going to be in existence 2, 3, 10 quarters down the road. We can't sacrifice everything for the 3-month earning reports. So The implication here is that the onus is on you to make them feel safe about the work that you're presenting, the program, the campaign, the effort that you're presenting. What I'm not saying is that you need to present safe, dull, boring ideas, because they actually need that bigger, bolder thinking to get them out of the crunch that they're in right now. However, you have to make them feel safe that those big, bold ideas are in fact the safe thing to do, that to not think big, to not innovate, to not be creative is in fact the risk that you must avoid. And you also have to think like a litigator, and you are presenting your case in front of a jury, and you have to present your case beyond reasonable doubt. This is the reason that the strategy has become even more important than the executional elements or the creative elements of the campaign, because it's the strategic part that is what makes clients, allows them to take a deep breath and go, all right, this completely makes sense. I see how the dots are being connected. There's an irrefutable argument for the campaign ideas or the recommendations that we are ultimately going to go forward with. The fix is in. Trend number 4. This is another one that's been building for a couple of years now, and it relates to competitive pitching and reviews. So this is when you're going in and you're competing against other firms. Here is a quote from a client. I have no choice but to put many agencies, many firms into a pitch, even though we've already got a pretty good idea of who will win. I was speaking at a conference down in Baltimore. It's about a year and a half, 2 years ago. It's for the PRSA, for public relations firms. And the room had clients in the room, and it had agency executives in the room. And I thought, okay, wow, this will be a great opportunity to get the two halves of the room talking to one another about new business. Hopefully they won't kill one another. And I got clients to admit that they are forced to put a larger number, a greater number now of firms in the review because they are being forced by procurement or procurement-like policy. So even if they don't have procurement, a lot of companies have started to adopt that kind of policy. This one woman, this one client actually stood up and admitted, and I couldn't believe, I was glad she did, but I couldn't believe she told this story in front of the whole conference. She told the story about 2 months previously she had run a review. And they worked with 2 agencies in this particular discipline where they were looking to bring on or to hand out an assignment. And she said, all right, well, I'll call one of our 2 shops and, I'll hand over the assignment. And she was told, no, we have new policy now. 12 agencies must compete in every review. And she kind of pushed back and she said, well, we've always worked with these 2 and we're actually quite happy with them. They're good shops. They do good work for us. We have a good relationship. And she was told, just do it. It's the new policy. So there she is on the phone now calling up 10 other firms saying, hey, we think you're really great. We like your work. We like your client list. Looks like you've got a really great group of people. And, maybe even you don't have any experience that relates to us, so don't worry. That's good. You'll bring us some fresh thinking. We could really use some fresh thinking around here. And meanwhile, you're on the receiving end of this call thinking, well, darn, we're a shoo-in here. I can't believe they're still doing the review. They love it so much. But the person calling you to invite you into the review, their job is to get your team sitting across the table from them. Their job is not to get you to win the review. So you have to remember, you've got to take it with a grain of salt when you're being invited. You have to step back and ask yourself, do we have the perceived credibility up against those we're competing against to win this review? From the perspective of the prospect, do we have the credibility to win? And if they won't tell you who the competitors are, do your best guess. What often happens is that we ask ourselves or we ask our team, what do you think, guys? Can we win this one? And it always gets rationalized into it. Absolutely, let's go for it. We can totally win this. And wouldn't it be great if we had experience in this new space, or let's go for it. So the phase in is another key trend that's been building. Number 5, clients are more pragmatic than they have ever been. I'm sure this one is not a complete surprise. They're focused on business impact. There's a move to more measurable mediums and agencies. We see direct marketing and digital picking up business and stealing business from other firms, in part because it's easier to measure the impact, measure the results of the work. And we see clients looking for those measurement, that data, that feedback, because what it ultimately does is it gives them job security. It's not just about the business. When they can go to their CFO, head of sales, CEO, whoever it is, when they can go and say, look, here's how I'm moving the needle. Here's the dashboard. Here's the 5 key metrics that we're evolving. Can you please get off my back now? Give me a little bit of room to breathe so that I can get back to work. And a move to more inexpensive mediums and agencies. And that's where, as well, I think digital direct, we see PR stealing business from ad agencies. We see promotions agencies stealing business from the big ad agencies as well. I'm sure as you're all aware, there's been lots in the news about it. The ad agencies are taking the biggest beating right now, and deservedly so. They've not evolved with clients and client needs, and they've definitely not evolved from a digital or online perspective. So they've taken a pretty heavy beating over the last couple of years. One of the key things to remember when you're making your presentations, and this is whether it's an existing client or in a new business situation, is don't just present the strategy and the program or the creative ideas, concepts that you're recommending. It's the strategy, the creative, and the impact. What happens is we often present the strategy, we present the creative, and then we say, all right, well, thank you very much. We hope you pick us. It's such a pleasure meeting you. But it's those agencies that do that critical third element. And here's how we expect this to impact these certain elements of your marketing, these certain elements of your business. This is how we expect, this is the benefit that we expect it to create for you. And it's that third element that helps to really seal the deal in a presentation. 6. This is a big opportunity for most agencies, and I would say for professional services firms in general. The management consulting firms clued into this a decade ago and have been capitalizing on it like crazy. Research-based facts, research-based insights trump your opinion. Clients love research. It's like a safety blanket where when they see the facts and figures in place, it allows them to feel safe about the decisions. They trust research more than they ultimately trust you. They say research is fact, and that's safer than just your opinion, because your opinion, it might be right about ultimately what they need to do, but your opinion might be wrong. And if it's wrong, that could create a negative impact not only on the business, but on their reputation. We've actually seen over the last 18 months some clients get fired because their agency, the effort of their agency, particularly if it was a major assignment, because that effort failed. The client got fired. So that's what's ultimately at stake for these guys. And when you have research, and I'm not talking about overwhelming your prospects or your clients with putting Excel spreadsheets up on a PowerPoint slide. It's a few select data points that back up and help you build your case, that help you build that irrefutable argument in terms of what you are recommending they proceed forward with. I mentioned before there's a priority on strategy versus creative now. This is a recent shift. Big creative concepts, big creative ideas, that's price of entry now. That will not separate you. It's how you make them feel safe about those big concepts. That's what will separate you. I mentioned the priority on strategy versus creative, and we still hear that too many firms wanting to put an emphasis on the final program, the ideas, the campaign, and they're jumping to that too quickly. And ultimately what you need to get to is strategic insights or consumer insights. Ultimately insights about the target. Get to their target purchase behavior. What is the purchase decision criteria for the target consumer in that particular category or segment? How do they make their purchase decisions? And how is the effort that you're presenting going to best address that purchase decision criteria, that purchase decision process? Also insights into the effectiveness of their brand and their marketing and into their business impact. It definitely starts with the end consumer. If it's in the case of B2B, it would be a business that's the end consumer. You still must have an insight into how they make their purchase decisions as it relates to the product that you're addressing. Number 7, clients are completely frustrated by the lack of agency differentiation. They all look and sound the same. They complain about all the cliches: one-stop shop, media neutral, fully integrated, entrepreneurial spirit, big agency experience in a small agency environment, 100 years combined experience on our management team, fastest growing agency in Rockland County with employees between 40 and 43 people, all about client services, all about ideas. These are cliches that we see from all agencies. There are now, according to the Census Bureau and the Department of Labor, if you were to guess how many marketing services firms in the U.S. there are right now, you might want to guess, you might guess 500, 1,000 maybe, factoring in the whole country. It's actually 61,888 is the exact number. And these are the ones that claim employees. So this doesn't even include freelancers that you might bump into now and again. 61,888. You think it's difficult going to the grocery store to pick out a can of soup. Lord help you if you have to pick out a new agency, whether it's for your sales promotion, your shopper marketing effort, or whether it's for that new advertising or that new online effort. They worry, they don't worry, they're just frustrated. And when you're not differentiated, what's happened is agencies have become commoditized. And when you're a commodity, clients have control. The prospect has total control. They will tell you what they want, when they want it, and for the price that they're willing to pay. And they know that you'll do it because if you don't, there's another 20 firms within a $12 cab ride from you that will do it. So commoditization is a real issue that's affecting selection of agencies. Number 8, in the home stretch here. Clients are retaining and paying higher fees for experts. However, they define experts different than how we or as agencies typically define experts. They define it based on category experience. This is another significant trend that's been building for 4 or 5 years, and it's a trend that most firms don't want to hear. It's another example of a trend that the management consulting firms clued into. And when you go to a site like Accenture.com, you'll see that one of the things they want you to do is to click into the particular category or industry that you're in so that they can speak to prospects using the vernacular, the language, the metrics, the style of that particular category. Well, I don't necessarily believe you have to have experience in a particular category to do work what I think doesn't matter. Clients believe that if you do not have experience in my category, it's a risk, and I do not have time to train you on the nuances of what makes our business tick, of what our key performance metrics, our key performance indicators are, and then the case studies to back up that category experience. So one of the implications here is when you are considering whether to go into a competitive pitch or review, or you're picking a segment or a category, or you're picking your prospects to proactively reach out to get in the door to get that first meeting, category experience is first and foremost on the mind of prospects. I would say this particular trend has been the one that has been the most difficult pill to swallow for most agencies. I remember the ones that I worked at, we fought this one tooth and nail, and we lost pitch after pitch, or I wasted time, tremendous amount of time, trying to get in the door with prospects who would quickly ask about our experience, and I could not give, and in some cases, I could not give them experience that related to their particular category. It ultimately makes them feel safe. They believe that your odds of failure will be much lower if you have a tremendous amount of experience in their space. By the way, agencies believe this too. If you are doing let's say it could be a website, could be an in-store display of some kind, it could be a print ad, it could be a television commercial. For the photographer that you are using, and let's say you're doing something where it involves heated food, you need a photographer that has food experience. You would never take a risk with a photographer that does not understand how difficult it is to shoot food to make it look absolutely delectable and piping hot and steaming. If you're shooting an automotive commercial, that director absolutely must have automotive experience. An agency would never take a risk on a photographer, a director that does not have experience as it relates to the particular type of work or category of work at hand. Clients have no patience for the sales pitch anymore. The monologue from the front of the room is dead. It is officially over. That notion where you're invited to give your capabilities and show off how amazing you are, and you bring in 4, 5, 8, 10 people, you go into the conference room and you line up one at a time and you stand in front of your PowerPoint presentation, and maybe they say, hey, come in, we'll give you an hour, show us your capabilities, we'd love to see what you're about, and make sure you leave some time for Q&A at the end. Meanwhile, you talk for 59 minutes, and you look at your watch, and, oh, guys, yeah, you asked us to leave some time for questions at the end. Any questions at all? And they kind of look at you, their eyes have glossed over, they've drifted off into other meetings, and there's a bit of a, no, guys, no questions. That's good. We'll let you know. We'll give you a call. And particularly because your sales pitch sounds 99% like every other sales pitch they're seeing from every other firm, every one of your competitors that's going in the door. And it's because of the cliches. I would say I've been here at Miriam for 4 years now. I've seen probably in the neighborhood of 400 capabilities presentations, including collateral, positioning statements, strategic processes, and I would say a handful stood out of my mind as significantly being different, and that includes promotional shops, sales promotion, direct, advertising, the full gamut. There's too much of me. I'm going to talk all about us, even though I sound exactly the same, because I believe that I keep talking, I'm going to talk you into buying us. And this picture kind of brings to life how we look, how agencies often look to clients. Bottom line, end of the day, this is what clients most want to know. So when you're picking up the phone when you're about to go in and meet with that prospect, they are looking to have this one question answered. What do you have for me that will help my business? I don't want to sit here and listen to you for an hour. I want to know, and by the way, you've got 4 minutes. And if you can't hook me in 4 minutes, think about a phone call. If you can't hook me quickly, not only am I not going to have time to continue this phone call with me, but you will never get in the door here. I've got another 15, 20 agencies calling me every week. And it's not just agencies calling me. It's printer reps, magazine reps, radio reps, television reps. Everybody's trying to sell me, but everybody wants to talk about them. One of the key shifts that you have to make, which will transform your business development, and we see this with the agencies that are growing most quickly right now, is that they talk less about themselves and they start talking about what they have for the prospect, what they have for the prospect that will ultimately help them. And by virtue of making it about the prospect, you are actually saying a lot about your agency. You're saying that you're client-centric, you're prospect-centric. You're an agency that's focused on results. You're not just saying we're about results. That's another cliche that we say. You're giving them a demonstration of being about results. As we wrap up here, I want to give you a couple of implications of all of this, and then we'll turn it over to for some Q&A here. Here is one implication: focused targeting. Stop trying to be everything to everyone. We advise our clients that they need to segment, that they need to have very focused messages. Just because you sell peanuts and 9-year-olds eat peanuts and 90-year-olds eats peanuts doesn't mean that one effort will connect with both of those target audiences. You must segment. The problem is most communications firms, most agencies do not take their own advice and focus their targeting. Leverage the way that clients feel about category experience. I'll give you some examples quickly here. Platform. Probably a firm you've never heard. I'd never heard of them until someone brought them up in one of our at one of our events. This is an agency, and that all they do is enrollment marketing for the military and for educational institutions. They are now a $100 million agency that you have never heard of. They like to fly under the radar because they don't want other agencies to know what they're up to. But these guys continue to grow. Now, this is an example of an agency that's picked one segment to focus on. You could maybe call it two between the military and educational institutions. But you don't have to necessarily pick one. You might have multiple. Here's another agency that picked one. What these guys picked was, this is a small agency in New Jersey, and we were on site with them, kind of crystallizing, working on a way to better differentiate them. And we did an inventory of their experience and trying to figure out where do you have the greatest perceived credibility? Where do you have the greatest category experience? Let's look at, find some clues in terms of who we could most quickly go after, get into, and convert into an assignment. In other words, we were looking for their low-hanging fruit. And we actually had a unique angle on this one. With these guys, it was a depth of experience with franchise-based companies. And I remembered from working on McDonald's for a few years that working with franchise-based companies can be a real challenge. It can be a nightmare. Franchisees fight with one another. Franchisees fight with corporate. Corporate's trying to implement their retail-driven programs. Franchisees are fighting back. They don't want to implement all these programs because these discounting programs impact their margins in such a bad way. These guys are able to go in and they will ask a prospect, a franchise-based prospect, are you guys having this problem, and this problem? Talk to us about your franchisee compliance. How are they doing at executing your programs? Oh my God, it's been awful. Yeah, no, they've been pushing back. We've been having a real challenge trying to get 100% compliance with these. Well, we've got a few ways to make that work. We are the only agency in the country that specializes in franchise-based companies like yours. Let us take you through some of our insights. In fact, we've done a study called the St. Jack's Big 30 Benchmark, first ever study on franchise-based marketing. They spent hardly any money on it. They spent more money, I think, printing it than actually doing it. But they came up with some good insights. And they share these insights as a hook to get prospects engaged. Here's an example of a firm targeting many segments. I'm going to go outside the agency world for a second. I mentioned Accenture before. Look at all the segments that Accenture wants prospects to believe that they are absolute experts and gurus in. They want you to click into that vertical so you go into aerospace and defense, and they can say, we are aerospace and defense experts. Here are some of the challenges that we see specific to the aerospace and defense sector. Here's some of the insights. In fact, here you can even download a couple of our research studies if you want, because that will build our credibility. More important than giving you any collateral is if you learn something from us, if you leave this website and you are a smarter person because of it, we know that you will probably want to give us a call. Here's an example of a PR firm. The PR firms have started to do this a little bit better. Here's an example, Weber Shandwick, excuse me, where they've picked a number of the different segments that they're going after. So you don't have to have one for life. You can have multiple. But the key is that they're discreetly packaged, segmented, and positioned. Otherwise, you're a generalist, and clients believe that generalists are, well, we think it's a good thing to be a jack of all trades. To a client, when they see a jack of all trades, what that translates to in client language is you're not really good at any one thing in particular, and we're looking for experts. It's kind of like if you had a health issue. Clients right now feel like they have pretty serious health issues with their businesses. If you had a health issue, would you want to go to a general practitioner or would you want to go to a specialist? Not only would you want to go to a specialist, you would fly halfway around the world if you had to get to that specialist. Clients are looking at this in the same way. There's a travel and tourism agency based in Kansas City, not exactly the travel and tourism mecca. However, they are another $100 million agency. All they do is travel and tourism. Here's another thing that happens when you're an expert like MNG Worldwide. They have conflicting clients. They have conflicting airlines, conflicting hotel chains, conflicting resorts, and it's because the perceived depth of experience and benefit that they'll bring to the table is so great that they're willing to overlook competitive, conflicting concerns. There's a saying that relates to this that is tough to get to, but it does make sense. 2 is a conflict, 3 is a specialty. And the key is to get to that 3 point. With that, so targeting being a key element and making it really about them is what's absolutely critical. And answering this particular question, what do you have for me that will help my business? With that, I will turn it over to our gracious moderators, and if we have any questions.
Brent, this is Lisa. I'm curious, you talked about the new sheriffs in town, and certainly historically search consultants have played a large role in a number of the larger reviews, and we're curious where you see them fitting into the new landscape.
It's actually funny that you would ask that because we are just in the home stretch on our latest research study, which is on search consultants. For those, if there's anyone on the line that's not worked with a search consultant, the basic premise is that they are retained by clients to help them find the best agency to accomplish the objectives at hand. And there are some, so what we've actually done is we've asked agencies to review the search consultants. and we're publishing the findings on Monday. To answer your question, the key trends that we're seeing is less reviews run by search consultants now, particularly with the onset of procurement. Procurement's starting to say, hey, why do we need to hire these search consultants when we can do it ourselves? Also, budget-wise, particularly if you get down to mid-size or smaller clients, they tend to be less involved because they don't have the budget or don't have the budget anymore to work with search consultants. So there's definitely a trend where it looks like, at least right now, that they're involved less than they were 18 months ago.
Interesting. Curious your perspective on the role of relationships given the short tenure of CMOs, the role of procurement. Do you feel like relationships are dead, or are they more important than ever?
It's an interesting question because they are important, but here's the shift that we've seen with relationships. Or another way to look at it is kind of referral, or referral selling as we call it, where you're using a referral to get in the door, or you actually have the key relationship and you're using that to get in the door. What we see is that a relationship will help you get in the door still. The change is that it's less of a role in actually getting you the business. The reason being that person is less willing to put their career on the line to bring you in the door. We see many referrals happening where it's kind of like, all right, I'll make the introduction, but then you're on your own after that. I'm not going to cling my reputation to your success or failure. So still a key role in getting in the door, but gradually playing a smaller role in winning the actual assignment, particularly as procurement as well gets involved, which is kind of like a jury trying to make it a little bit more fair and objective.
So are you seeing with this fear and push for results more than ever, are agencies for the most part investing in proprietary research for initial or introductory meetings?
Absolutely. That's another big trend from the agency side. And it's funny because agencies kind of naturally freak out about this at first. Oh my God, he wants to do all this research every time we approach a prospect. Not quite. The way to do it is you pick a segment of prospects or you pick a category and you do your research based on doing that research against a group of 30, 40, 50, 60 prospects. Let's say it's in the automotive or automotive after parts segment. I'm making this up, but just to illustrate the point. And you're doing research to uncover what is the key purchase decision criteria that brands, that clients in this space are missing the mark on. And then you go shop around those findings to all those prospects. Now, again, agencies kind of feel like that's a lot of investment work, but how much work do you do for a competitive review or a competitive pitch now? You do that now. You do research, you do your homework, you do a bit of a dive into the business. What we're saying is to do that same work, but don't just do it for pitching, which is also a crapshoot at best. Apply it in a proactive prospecting manner as well. We heard last week, I was working with a firm in Chicago, and they told us that they had read an article that Accenture now has 300 people working in their insights group. And their job is to come up with insights that they use to shop around for business development and insights that they can sell to their clients. It's I cannot imagine 300 people. That's pretty wild, but I think it's a signal of things to come, a sign of things to come.
I'm curious, are you seeing more business, given all of these factors transpiring outside of formal reviews and procurement? Do you see a lot of organic, opportunistic new business happening as a result of agencies doing this research and reaching out, to a certain target list with these proprietary insights?
Exactly, yes. The pitches are bad. Even if you are the best agency for the client, there's so many variables beyond your control that are at play that the odds of winning, it's still a mixed bag. As you guys know, it's how many times have you gone into a pitch where you were sure you had it, and then you found out, of course you get the call, but you came in second. Or I really liked you, I really pushed for you, but there was somebody else on the team that had a concern. But you were our second choice, though, It was really close. And as opposed to, rather than taking that reactive approach, more of a proactive, more disciplined approach to bringing in prospects, going around the pitch, going in the side door, excuse me, and even trying to go around procurement as best you can, straight to as senior a marketing person as possible. And the goal is to get a project, and a project that will get you in the door. You're not trying to steal the entire business. Excuse me.
Rob, I want to make sure we capture any questions that the group has. Are you seeing any on your field?
Absolutely. We have a question from Renato Pia who asks, is an agency's fee at the top of the list when being considered in an RFP? In other words, is a low price attractive to clients? What's the right approach with fees, and where does it rank? Least important, very important, or most important?
Fee is important, but it is not the final decision-making element for, particularly for better clients. If it is the only driving element, I would question whether or not to proceed with that prospect, because it's also a sign of things to come with that prospect. If they are priced, if it's all about price at the outset, that is symptomatic of a client that is going to nickel and dime you every step of the way. Now, as it relates to being amongst the set of decision-making criteria, it still comes down to what they're calling a lot as value. And what is the impact that you're going to create, and what is our cost for that impact that you're going to create? What is the return that we would see on that impact? So it plays a role, but it is absolutely not the leading role. In fact, we see specialized agencies will often command a 10, 20, and 30% premium. St. Jack's Franchise Marketing that I showed will often get a fee much higher than other agencies that they're going up against. And the reason being is there's no substitutions. You're going to find yourself under price pressure if you're perceived to be an agency where I could substitute someone else or something else. It's because of commoditization. And you want to be careful of clients and prospects that are focused only on that, and really make an effort to focus on the benefit.
Okay. Also, I just wanted to point out to everyone on the call that for those of you who are listening in via your computer speakers, please feel free to type in questions in the question box, and we will try and get to them in the remaining time that we have. That's probably the quickest and easiest way for us to deal with questions. So are any other questions out there?
You know, Brent, I'm just curious, coming from the agency side, out of those 400 or so credentials presentations that you've had the pleasure of sitting through over the years, which ones stood out and why?
Yeah, the ones that stood out were the ones that, I'll try to give a short answer to this. It requires a bit of a longer explanation. It is the capability sessions where the agency spent 5 or 10 minutes talking about themselves, and the next 50 minutes or the next hour and 20 minutes turning it into a strategic working session with the client, where they introduced kind of a tool or a framework or a point of view. We have found, based on our expertise, our experience in your category, that you must practice these 5 critical principles for effective shopper marketing, for effective brand building, for effective online engagement. You must practice these 5. And in fact, as we take you through our case study, we're going to show you how we've applied these 5 principles for success, or principles for effectiveness, how we applied them and the kind of results that we got. And then what they do is they say, you know what? Why don't we actually take a couple of minutes? Let's see how well your work is currently performing against these 5 principles, and they turn it into a dialogue and a discussion. There's a saying, I can't remember how it's worded exactly, but it's a notion of whoever talks the most, they're the ones that feel like it was a great meeting, which is usually why when agencies leave the room, they feel like it was a great meeting because they talk the whole time. But we have seen there is a direct correlation particularly in the capabilities presentation, there's a correlation between the percentage of time that they talk and the odds of you winning that business. Most agencies do it the other way around. We believe that if we keep talking, that we'll eventually convince them. But you actually talk yourself out of the assignment. So it's those that ultimately create some kind of a dialogue and get the client talking about their key business issues. They ask lots of questions, and they don't fear asking questions. A lot of agents fear, I don't want to ask too many questions. I don't want to be the one that sounds like I don't know what I'm talking about. Exactly the opposite is true. So long as you ask with authority and with confidence, clients actually want to be interrogated. They want you to dive in and to ask more about what they're up to. It's human nature to want to feel listened to. It's human nature to want to feel like when you guys leave the room, you want the client to be going, wow, and those guys really understand us. They really listened well. I trust those guys. And if they talk 90% of the time, if the prospect talked 90% of the time, they'll also say, wasn't the chemistry incredible? I could have talked with them forever. So getting them to talk more, one of the byproducts is that elusive thing called chemistry that they often say they're looking for as well.
Any further? Go ahead.
I was just curious, given this increasing focus on business, I'm curious, Brent, if you see lines continuing to blur between the Accentures and the consultants and agencies. Agencies are really doing a lot of work in insight development, proprietary research, strategy, adding quantitative capabilities, and consultants are expanding their practices to capture, more of the marketing communications business. Do you see that as a trend that will continue?
Absolutely, and it is a trend that we're seeing. However, here's the nuance or the distinction and the trend. The distinction is that we see consulting firms, management consulting firms, marketing consultants starting to come down into the agency world, but we don't see agencies doing across the board, including the big ad agencies that have sophisticated strategic planning, account planning departments. We do not see agencies doing a good enough job of moving up into the strategic realm and getting closer to the business. There's basically three elements that you need to consider, particularly if you're going after the marketing chief. It's the quality of the target insight or the consumer insight, the quality of the brand insight in terms of what you know about the brand and what that brand most needs to do to improve, and it's the quality of the business insight. So you can talk to the implications, and agencies need to move up. Agencies that are doing that are the ones that are growing right now. St. Jack's Franchise Marketing, this little agency in New Jersey, they were about 13 people only 2 or 3 years ago. A, they just got acquired. B, I just got a call from them yesterday that they just stole a whole piece of the 7-Eleven business away from another massive agency. I think these guys they're about 25 or 30 people now. They just got a piece of the Jack in the Box business. They're getting in, they're not doing any pitches, they're going in through the side door and they're stealing business like crazy. I'll turn it back over to you.
Any further questions? I know we are after 3 o'clock right now. I want to let people get back to work. We have time for one more question if anybody has anything that they'd like to type in. If not, we are going to make this presentation will be archived and made available in the next day or two in the PMA members only area, and I do understand that we are getting a version of this, the PowerPoint for distribution to everyone, so we should have that shortly and be able to get that out to everyone who attended.
I'll also just mention that we've got a lot of content that expands on what you see here. If you happen to be interested, we just keep it on our website at mirin.com. You're welcome to go there. You'll see our blogs, our tools, There's all kinds of things that you can download and just take away and start using right away.
Okay, great, great. And just as a final note, wanted to remind everyone that if you enjoyed this webinar, we've got a couple more coming up this month. On Thursday, we are doing a session on in-store measurement with Mark Pizer, who's the VP of Marketing Research from News America. And next week, on October 15th, we are doing a session with Neil Heffernan of Knowledge Networks PDI and Jim Rollberg for PromoWorks. They're going to be talking about the new RISE study on in-store sampling and really going into some deep strategic insights on that one. So if you haven't signed up for those, please do. PMA members, obviously, those are free to you, and we welcome you aboard. And if anyone else is not a member, please consider signing up as well. And I think with that, if we have 1 second, we've got one more question from Donna McQueen. And her question for you is, Brent, I am with a niche digital entertainment agency and oftentimes directed by the brand to meet with the agency of record. The agency of record is busy and can't take the meeting. When I finally score the meeting with the brand, they're thankful to have the meeting. How do I go around procurement or a senior brand person who has directed me to the agency without offending someone at the brand or the agency?
Yeah, what's happening when you're being directed to another resource, and it's not good if it's another agency, because as you know, other agencies don't like to share the wealth, particularly in the year called 2009. But it's because you have not presented a case that is strong enough to warrant continuing the relationship. So it's actually what you're bringing forward, and that it needs to be more insight-rich, more benefit-oriented, and they're not getting it yet. Because if they really did believe that you would help them with their business, they will not let you go, no matter how small you are. You could be 3 people, and if you've got something that they believe will help them, they're going to make your life easy in terms of how to get in and work with that organization. That's kind of the short answer on that one. It's actually a question that we get a lot, and when we look at what's being taken forward, it's a little bit too much about the agency and not enough about the prospect and the kind of value that you ultimately deliver.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, Brent, Lisa, thank you very much. All of you, I want to thank you all for spending this hour and 14 minutes with us on this webinar, and hopefully we'll see you back here at subsequent PMA web seminars. Like I said, you will get information on how to download the deck, and members will get access to a media file wherein you can review this entire presentation with Brent's insightful commentary on it in a few days. Thanks very much, and we'll talk to you all soon. Good afternoon.
Rob, are you still there?